2022 Longmont City Council regular session to order. Can we have a roll call, please, Dawn?
Mayor Peck,
Here.
Councilmember Hidalgo Faring. Here. Councilmember Martin,
Oh, she isn't here.
there she is. I didn't hear her.
I didn't either.
Can you make her a co-host?
She just tested, I thought.
Marcia,
Yeah,
you're on
Councilmember
mute.
Martin, are you having issues unmuting? You should, yeah, you do have co-host permissions. You should be able
Yeah,
to.
and I'm asking her to unmute. On test, it worked okay. There she is.
Yeah, I
There.
thought I was unmuting, but apparently not. I am
Perfect.
here.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. That was a good test. Councilmember Waters. Here. Councilmember Yarbrough. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. Here. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So just as a reminder to the public, this meeting can be viewed at the live stream at www.longmontcolorado.gov and also on our YouTube channel. Anyone wishing to speak at first call and public invited to be heard will need to add his or her name to the list in the council chambers. Only those on the list will be invited to speak at the first public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their names on the list will have the opportunity to speak during public hearing items this evening or at the final call public invited to be heard on any item at the end of the meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the June 28th minutes?
So moved.
So it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Yarbrough. Let's vote. Great. So that carries unanimously. Thank you. Are there any agenda revisions, Dawn?
There are not, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any motions from the city councilors to direct city manager to add agenda items to future agendas? Councilor Hidalgo Faring.
Thank you, Mayor. This is more, just maybe this could be something that's added to our city manager update. I'm just curious to know, after the 4th of July, I'm still getting emails from people who were saying that there were a lot of illegal fireworks. I know we do have some, everything that's housed in the in those tents, those are all legal. They don't sell fireworks that are illegal in our state or in our vicinity. So, I don't know if these were ones that were just noisy coming from the tent or ones that they picked up from Wyoming or out of state and brought them in. But I would just, in the future, or if you have the information now, just to get an update on what, how did the call center work? How did, did it run well? Are there any changes that we need to be looking at, considering?
Sandy can, can you all hear me? Yep. Yes. Sandy can talk through some of the numbers, and I know Zach's in the back as well. And I would also say that as part of what they do, so what's sold in the tents are supposed to be legal fireworks. They did run into a situation this year. The state was doing inspections, and they did deal with a tent that did not have legal fireworks, and those fireworks were confiscated. And so Public Safety Chief Artis informed me of that and sent me a picture of one of our assistant chiefs with the back of his truck full of those. And the state will be dealing with those issues, and I've asked Zach to make sure in terms of permitting for next year. So I wanted to say that because there are multiple things that people are looking at in that process. But Sandy, you can talk about the numbers, and I don't know where Zach is. Yeah, in case you need it.
Thanks, Mayor Peck. Councilmember Hidalgo Faring. I sent a little bit of this information out this last week, but essentially in comparison to last year, we had a few more calls than we did last year during that same period of time. So last year we had 470 calls to 911. This year, however, with the hotline and the online reporting, although we had more contact from folks, we only had 193 calls to 911. So certainly the hotline and the online reporting did exactly what we were hoping it would do, which is to take those off of 911 priority calls. So that's really good news. As far as changes that might be made, my understanding from the volunteers, and thank you for Mayor Peck and those of you who volunteered at the hotline, that was really helpful and kind of, certainly appreciated by all the volunteers that were there. But I think the suggestion is that Friday night, there was only 5 calls, so maybe shortening the period of the hotline, that really the big night was 4th of July and maybe the night before. So the suggestion that I heard from Robin, who helped to run the call center, was maybe shorten the hotline time. But certainly the online reporting tool helped public safety staff a bunch, is what I understood. There were 259 reports on the online report on the fireworks line, and then 271 calls to the hotline, most of those on July 4th. So there were a few priority 1 calls. There was a lot of priority 1 calls, actually. So this did help for folks to be able to get to those, and there were a few fires in addition. And then plus the 400 pounds of fireworks that Harold was just talking about. You want to add anything, Chief Artist?
Mayor Peck, just cut it off. There we go. Mayor Peck, Council, Zach Artist, Public Safety Chief for Longmont. I will tell you, I did come out this year. This is my first year being here for 4th of July. I did come out and had the opportunity to work both Saturday night, Sunday night, and Monday. I did answer a lot of the calls that came through in our call center, picking up those calls, getting through the neighborhoods, trying to identify folks that were discharging fireworks, and then determining whether or not those fireworks were legal or illegal. So there were several warnings that were issued, quite a few of those. I don't have those numbers in front of me. I think the call center went very well. One of the goals was to get the calls off of our dispatch center, which we were able to do, but then also get the information out pretty much real time on the heat map. So what we're doing right now is we're going through that information. ETS is helping us with the back of the house stuff with addresses, beginning to look to see if we can identify what we call hotspots, meaning did we get a majority of calls in certain areas of the city? And if we did, what can we do moving forward leading up to next year before July 4th as far as trying to educate or at least getting some more educational material or information out to those communities or those HOAs to try to help with that, educating folks, and again, looking at what our alternatives are of what we can do to try to address just ordinance-wise or whether or not enforcement-wise, what we can do a little bit better this year as far as how we address the illegal fireworks. To your comment, Councilmember Hidalgo, technically, yes, the tents are not supposed to sell illegal fireworks, but again, we did have one up on Main at Highway 66 near the Walmart, and the state came in, they regulate those, they come in, they did a spot check, and again, determined as City Manager Dominguez said about 400 pounds. We had to take those out and dispose of those properly at an area that we deal with our bomb disposal. And so we were able to deal with that. But again, we're looking at, right now, we're just in the gathering stage of all the intel that we got in and seeing what worked well, what we need to change. We do know that there were, heat map was used after we closed the call center. And so again, trying to figure out how we can extend those hours or look at those things. This was a unique year where the 4th of July fell on a Monday. So you really had Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and a Monday. We weren't sure what to expect. Next year, it should shift to a Tuesday, so we're only hoping that Mondays and Tuesday, we would have potential a bigger issue for fireworks. But again, just a little bit of time. I think we'll have something for you probably within the next 30 days or so as we work through this data and information and bring back our ideas and suggestions to the council on how we can address this better.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, okay, Councilor Yarbrough.
Thank you for that information. I just have a question because we have been receiving emails about it. I guess the question I have is how early are they setting up for those legal fireworks? Because I know a week prior to the 4th, I was hearing it myself in my neighborhood. So I know some of the complaints that I was getting You know, it's a whole week of hearing that and the 4th, and so is there any way we can restrict how long, how early or how soon they can start selling those legal fireworks? I mean, like, you know, a few days prior, or, you know, I mean, that's the number one complaint that I've been receiving, and I know I heard them myself, like, a whole week before the 4th.
To your answer, I don't, that's not my area of expertise. I don't issue those licenses. I would suspect that we can do anything that we want to as far as limiting the number of days or how long that you can sell fireworks within the city limits of Longmont. But just be aware that, again, as we discussed through issues, a lot of the illegal fireworks are actually coming from out of state to where they're sold. But again, you can limit those, I believe, and we'd have to look in at whether or not legally we could do that. But I think we can limit when they're sold, how far out, whether it's 30 days or 2 weeks or whatever that may be that council chooses to look into. But again, just be aware that other jurisdictions around us may not follow that also. So those fireworks coming into our community can still come up as soon as the first tent comes in, but it may not necessarily address the issue. But Longmont certainly can look at that and try to curb that as much as possible within the city limits of Longmont.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
If I can, you know, one of the things I did want to say is, and Zach probably won't talk about this, but Zach and most of his leadership actually during those nights are actually out on patrol with the officers and as much to see what was going on and try to think about what we can do in the future based on, you know, when they were seeing and getting these calls and what it was really like when they get there, what they see. So he and I have already had some conversations based on his experience and looking at some things for next year as well. The only question I have is, did this answer your question, or do we need to provide more information?
No, I think just having it public.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Mayor, if
Yes.
I could, Eugene May, City Attorney, I was just looking at our ordinance for the permit to sell fireworks, permissible fireworks. It's specified in the ordinance June 19th to July 4th. So if we were to change those dates, we'd need an ordinance change.
Okay. Good information. Thank you. So city manager report.
Mayor, Council, I'm glad I was here, Sandy. I have Kevin Ismail with our Office of Emergency Management and Greg Manson with the National Weather Service. And Greg's here. Kevin will come up and talk a little bit about what they're going to discuss, but Greg's also here to give the city a designation from
Great.
the National Weather Service.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Presenting Greg Hansen, who is the warning coordination meteorologist with the National Weather Service here in Boulder. Over the last couple months, we've been working together with the National Weather Service to get Longmont storm ready certification, and we were able to accomplish that. And today, Greg is here to give us our certification and just kind of say a few words about what all that's about.
I'm a tall guy. Mayor Peck and Council, thanks. Good evening for having me here. Again, my name is Greg Hansen with the National Weather Service in Boulder. We serve 22 counties in north central and northeast Colorado, providing weather forecasts and warnings to help keep the public safe. So we're here tonight to award Longmont your Storm Ready recognition. The Storm Ready program is a way for the National Weather Service to recognize communities, counties, other organizations for their good emergency management practices with respect to weather. So things like, do you have a plan? Do you have a 24-hour warning point? Do you have a way to receive warnings? Do you have a way to send warnings out? I know I'm on Kevin's email list, and you guys probably are too for weather alerts. So things like that, and there's a lot of check boxes that we had to go through and you know, check off that things were done. But the important thing about this program is the relationship that it builds. You know, Kevin knows our office. We know Kevin. When he called during an exercise they were doing, hey, can you do a forecast for us? And we know who he is, and yeah, we can do that for you. So it really enhances that relationship between us and the emergency management community, and then in turn Longmont. so we can provide good information and have a good back and forth. So I'm really happy to do this. This is a great part of my job. We've got one road sign that we'll give you that says that we are storm ready, and then I've got a plaque here that says the National Weather Service and the Northern Colorado Storm Ready Advisory Board recognize Longmont, Colorado as a storm ready community for enhancing public safety by promoting the principles and values of the Storm Ready program and demonstrating your readiness and ability to respond to weather hazards. So congratulations, Kevin, and to Longmont, and we're happy to be here.
All right. Thank you, Greg.
All right.
Congratulations, this is great.
Would it be possible, is it appropriate, could we get a photograph with all of this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, scoot in just a little bit. There you go. Perfect. Okay, 1, 2, 3. One more. We're storm ready. Very good. Thanks.
So we have a special report tonight from Jessica Erickson for the LEDP quarterly presentation. Welcome, Jessica.
Oh, it's right in front of me.
I think we're ready.
Okay, great. Good evening, Mayor Peck and council members. I am Jessica Erickson, President and CEO of Longmont Economic Development Partnership, here to give our second quarter impact report. We'll start by reminding you of the services that we provide through the contract between Longmont EDP and the City of Longmont, which includes strengthening Longmont's competitive position, marketing Longmont nationally and globally, supporting the creation and retention of quality jobs, advancing opportunities for entrepreneurship and innovation, and advocating on behalf of all Longmont businesses. Our strategy, our economic development strategy, is Advance Longmont 2.0, with goals related to talent, industry, placemaking, transportation, connectivity, and impact. Specific to the contract between Longmont EDP and the City of Longmont, the areas of focus are talent, industry, and impact. So I'll start by providing an update on our talent-related objectives. The first of those is being the marketing to and recruitment of new talent into our community to meet the needs of our existing primary industry base. We do that primarily through national marketing campaigns, as well as a recently launched website that has a focus on the attraction of talent and connecting talent to career opportunities here in the City of Longmont. Through Q2 of 2022, we've had about 874 ad campaign impressions through a national marketing campaign with over 3,000 clicks on that ad campaign. Top five user locations, so the top 5 places across the country that people are clicking on our ads from, include Los Angeles, Denver, Phoenix, Longmont, and Catonsville, Maryland, which we're looking into. As I mentioned, we did launch our new website in late April of this year, and we've so far had over 4,400 unique users to that site, with the most visited pages being the homepage, as well as our work style or career opportunity page, site selection services, so the place where people who are looking to relocate businesses or to identify expansion opportunities for businesses are going, and then our team page. Interestingly, and I think an indication of what we're working, is that the top 3 search keywords that are getting people from the internet to our website, or from their search engine to our website, are jobs in Colorado, Colorado jobs, and then more specifically, engineering jobs and maintenance jobs. Our second talent objective is to conduct the annual workforce perception study, which will launch on July 18th, so Monday of next week that will go out. Talent intelligence data is another objective of ours, so that's gathering information and data and analyzing it to understand the talent needs of our primary industry base and of those industries that we've targeted for growth and expansion in our community. As part of our new website, we did launch a career pathways platform that gives individual job seekers the opportunity to take a career pathway assessment and connect directly to local jobs. And we have over 100 job seekers that have participated in that career pathways assessment just since late April when we launched the site. As part of our annual Elevate Longmont survey, which is our business retention and expansion survey, we included 27 talent needs assessment questions. That survey has closed. We have a little bit of data here, but we'll have a more comprehensive reporting of that data. But from that survey, we heard from our employers that finding talent with the right skills, attracting talent to their companies, and retaining that talent were the top 3 employer challenges. We also have an objective to support our existing talent systems. We're fortunate here in Longmont to have strong workforce development services through Workforce Boulder County, as well as Front Range Community College and St. Vrain Valley School District. So we try to support and connect users to those systems as frequently as possible. And we do that throughout the year in 2 ways, both through direct referrals of existing companies to those resources, as well as including information about those resources in responses and RFP proposals for potential new companies coming into Longmont. So based on all that, of the objectives that we are looking at, we anticipate and are on track to meet all of those objectives in 2022. Our industry objectives, the first being primary industry growth, with one of the ways that we do that through the use of both local and state incentives. As we've talked about before, we do have a goal to update the city's incentive policy to better align with our values as a community and attract the type of businesses that are creating the opportunities for our residents and our workforce that we desire. That work started in 2020 and was delayed as a result of all things 2020 and things that happened since then. We continue to be challenged with bandwidth on both sides of the organization, so both the city side and the economic development side, but we do still have a goal to get that updated in 2022. We have no new state or local incentives approved so far this year. However, we do have a couple that we anticipate coming forward in the next 60 to 90 days. Part of our primary industry growth objective is lead generation, so creating those opportunities or identifying and leveraging those opportunities for new business investment in our community. So far this year, or through Q2 of this year, we've had 21 total primary industry prospect leads that have come through our office. 13 of those came in new in the second quarter of this year. 15 of them continue to be active as of June 30th of 2022, with just over 2,500 potential net new jobs in that pipeline, with an average annual wage of nearly $85,000 and a potential of nearly $280 million in capital investment in our community. A half of those primary industry prospects are in our smart manufacturing industry cluster, so we continue to see a lot of activity in industrial and manufacturing space, and 90% of all of our prospects are within those Advanced Longmont 2.0 target industry clusters. Our next industry objective is business retention, so our ability to retain the primary industry base that we have here. We assess that through our annual Elevate Longmont survey, or business retention expansion survey. That survey was sent to 217 Longmont-based primary employers between January and April of this year, closed on April 30th. We did receive 61 survey responses with a response rate of 28%. Our goal this year was 25%. We hosted 3 executive roundtables to add a little bit more color and qualitative data to what will turn into our annual State of Industry report at the end of this year. We did see a strong representation across all 4 of our primary industry sectors. We also have an industry objective to deploy $60,000 of city-funded grants to startups. Initially, that was intended to go to startups participating in the Innovate Longmont Accelerator. We did, through feedback from our startup and entrepreneurial community, dissolve the Innovate Longmont Accelerator as of the end of April and are refocusing our efforts on realizing the manufacturing incubator that we've talked to you about before. We're in the process of convening the advisory board for that and have 4 individuals already committed to that. We also have physical space for that facility, thanks to our partners at H2 Manufacturing. So we do actually have people that are actively using that resource as we're getting it built up and running. And so we have issued 1 startup grant for a ramp participant, Amplified Space, of $14,000. They are a Longmont-based aerospace technology company. And so based on all that, we are on track to meet all of our industry objectives within the contract. Finally, our impact objectives, the first being to serve as the collective impact backbone support for Advanced Longmont 2.0. We do that through coordination of our steering committee and all of the working groups around the strategic initiatives of Advanced Longmont 2.0. So for one of those, we hosted a strategy alignment retreat earlier this year. And so far this year, I've hosted 48 initiative support meetings. We also have been fortunate to get funding to host diversity, equity, and inclusion workshops for each of our initiative working groups, as well as our steering committee. We've hosted 2 of those so far. We, with the assistance of the esteemed council member Martin, have developed a new initiative proposal portal with a community readiness guide that will be posted on our website very soon. And we've added 4 new Advanced Longmont 2.0 steering committee partners from partner organizations across the community. Our current collective impact initiatives include accessible and affordable childcare, Prosper Longmont, which is focused on attainable housing, and River District. In the pipeline, we have intracity transportation system, which we're very close to. We have a mission and vision for that initiative, and so we'll be proposing that very soon, and that will move over to the other side. And we also anticipate leveraging collective impact to move the RAMP project forward, as well as potentially a much more comprehensive innovation district surrounding that. And then finally, our No Wrong Door for ecosystem for entrepreneurs will be reconvening all of our entrepreneurial support organizations in August. We had turnover in almost every single leadership role in our entrepreneurial support organizations over the last year or so. And so now that everybody's in place in leadership in those organizations, we'll be reconvening that conversation here very soon. Our next objective was the collective data dashboard, which we did complete and was launched in March of this year and can be viewed at advanced.longmont.org. I will mention that we've had a recent conversation with city staff about how we can do a better job of collaborating and being consistent across both organizations as well as all of our partner organizations in the data that we're using and how we serve that to you so that it can be a good tool for your use as well as one of our partners. And then our final impact objective is our leadership council. So this is really about engaging the private sector in the work, both the work and the funding of economic development for the city of Longmont. We currently have 31 members as of, that should say June 30th of 2022, with new members in the second quarter of this year, including Cimarron Hospitality, who is the owner of the Hilton Garden Inn, as well as Bank of Colorado, Front Range Community College, and AGC Biologics. That group has funded 2 projects in 2022 so far, including the ongoing funding of Prosper Longmont through June of 2022, as well as providing, as I mentioned before, the funding for the diversity, equity, and inclusion workshops for our Advanced Longmont 2.0 working groups. I'll remind you that the funding through the Aspire Leadership Council is entirely private sector funding contributed by the members of that leadership council. And so none of those are dollars, city dollars, that are being used for that work. And so again, with all of that, we anticipate meeting all of our objectives for 2022, are on track to do so far this year. And then I'll just give you some highlights of our overall economic position as a community. The city of Longmont in 2021 had about a $6.8 billion local economy. The region, so the immediate Longmont region, so the city of Longmont and immediately surrounding areas, had just under 56,000 jobs and had experienced a 3.8% employment growth rate over the previous 5 years. That includes the losses that were a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and our response to it. As of now, we're projecting that we'll end 2022 with nearly 57,000 jobs, which would represent 2.3% year-over-year job growth. So 3.8% in 5 years, 2.3% in 1 year, and we are back at a 2.8% unemployment rate as of April of this year. We also are paying close attention to economic indicators related to residential real estate, and thanks to our partners at Boulder Longmont Realtors, we know that the median sales price in Longmont in May was $628,000, which, as I think I mentioned last time, still makes us the most affordable city in Boulder County from a residential home price perspective. We also continue to be the most active from a sales perspective, although the city of Boulder has a more significant inventory, as of May of this year in terms of homes available for sale or listed. This last slide, our commercial real estate indicators, you'll see it notes that it's Q1 2022. We're doing this report much earlier in this month than we normally would, so we don't have access to Q2 2022 commercial real estate data yet. So this remains the same. We'll be happy to share that Q2 information with you as soon as we have it later this month. And with that, I will answer any questions that you have for me.
Councilor Waters. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. Thanks, Jessica. Just a couple of quick questions. Remind us of what your total budget for an operating year for LEDP.
Mayor Peck, Councilmember Waters, our budget this year is just shy of $800,000. It's $780,000.
And of that, how much, you have a contract with the city.
We do.
What's the amount in that contract?
$362,000.
Of the 780.
Correct.
So 40%?
40-ish percent.
So you've leveraged that 383 into almost $800,000.
362 to, yes.
Where were you prior to the pandemic? If you recovered fully from the pandemic, because I know there was a big impact.
Yes, we are projecting to recover more than recover. We've already, in 2022, through June 30th, from private sector funding, we've already raised more than we had raised in all of 2019 pre-pandemic. So
you've come back.
Yes, we've definitely more than recovered.
And just as we are in the process of building our own budgets, as you're in the process of building yours, obviously everything, it's a very positive report. And you've identified at least one of the headwinds, right, that you're looking at, and that's housing. Mm-hmm. What are the others that we ought to be aware of that you're facing, and that likely others and the city and other businesses may face? Number one, and are there tailwinds that we ought to be taking advantage of?
To answer the first question, Councilmember Waters, in addition to housing, certainly the talent piece as a whole, housing isn't the only component of talent.
How about childcare?
Childcare, our inability to manufacture people at this point in time, all affect, that was a joke, by the way, all affect our primary industry base's ability to continue to operate here, grow here, invest here, expand here. So it's all interconnected, transportation included, because as we don't have the talent that's needed here in Longmont, the ability to get them from other parts of the region into our community also becomes an issue. So all of the things that go into our ability to maintain a talent pipeline that meets the needs of not just our existing primary industry base, but as they grow and as new entrants come into the market. We are fortunate to have, with St. Vrain Valley School District and Front Range Community College, a couple of institutions that are absolutely contributing to future talent pipeline development, but it's just not enough based on where we're at today from an industry perspective. Also, our lack of available land, I shouldn't say lack, but our dwindling availability of land for commercial real estate development. I think that there is going to come a time in the very near future where redevelopment of the existing built environment for industrial and manufacturing type businesses is going to have to be consideration, and hopefully we'll be able to attract some investment to that. You've probably seen at the Max Store facility, the former Max Store facility, the Max, that there's some speculative investment going into improvements to that facility. We need to see a lot more of that in order for those facilities in kind of that old Pratt portfolio to be viable options for the companies that we're talking today, as we don't have a lot of land to develop new facilities for new companies and for growing companies. It is incredibly challenging to have to tell a company that was founded here, has grown here, has invested in our community, has created jobs in our community since the day that they were founded, that we have no longer any place for them to grow into. So those are the challenges I think that we face. We actually just talked to a developer today. Every investor, developer, site selection consultant, C-suite individual that we talk to is gung-ho on Longmont. So there's two sides of that coin, right? We're very, very popular right now in terms of people's interest in being part of and investing in our community and being part of the future growth of our community. And so I think as long as we can continue to work together to address some of the challenges that we face, that we have a long many years of being able to continue to support our community through growth of our primary industry base.
Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. So it just kind of spurred a question when I saw your breakdown on the commercially available property, office versus industry, right? And so as we know, in a lot of major metropolitan areas, we're seeing a lot of office buildings stay somewhat vacant due to remote work and how popular that is nowadays. And I remember when I first came on to council, there was a lot of conversation about how we didn't have enough Class A office space. Are we starting to see the desire for Class A office space as potential development decrease, considering remote work and kind of the changing environment around how folks are doing their jobs these days?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Peck, Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. So I was probably one of those people that was many years ago saying that we needed some Class A office space and time, but it's actually been of benefit to us under current circumstances because we didn't have a lot to lose. So, and we certainly have not seen that, as I mentioned, over half of the activity in our pipeline is in that smart manufacturing space. Another 25% of that is in our knowledge creation and deployment space, which lends itself to, that's really kind of R&D, which lends itself to more flex, what I would consider flex office or industrial space, so not multi-story Class A type of office environment. And so we're really not seeing that demand for traditional, or what I think most people outside of Longmont would consider Class A office space. And in fact, we're seeing our neighboring communities that have that product struggling to backfill those spaces, and also having concerns about, as those leases run up, what's going to happen to them as companies start to shrink their footprint as a result of work from home policies.
So I guess, that's kind of what I was expecting to hear. So has there been conversations about the adaptive reuse of our current office space, that's available within the city, as far as, looking forward to the possible shrinking of the footprints, as you just mentioned? Because it provides us opportunities to do some different things with those buildings or those sites that, would not have been the topic of conversation just a few years ago.
So when we're talking about, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, when we're talking about office space, so the data source that we use, and most real estate data sources, are looking at kind of the more traditional office space, and flex office space generally falls into that industrial category. And I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I will provide them to you if you're interested, but a significant portion of what is classified as office space in the city of Longmont is medical office space. So that space is full. That space is being used. As you know, UC Health built a whole additional medical office space building. So our not just Class A office space, but our inventory of what would be considered pure office space as it relates to these numbers is almost negligible. Where we would like to see that kind of adaptive reuse redevelopment is in, again, that kind of old prep portfolio stuff, which would actually be counted in the industrial numbers because it's considered as flex industrial space and so would not be considered in this in these office numbers. But yes, we would absolutely like to see redevelopment, adaptive reuse of many of those spaces that sit vacant and will continue to sit vacant because regardless of pandemic or work from home or anything else, they just don't meet the needs of industry today.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. It's a really good report.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. So now we're at public invited to be heard. So the first person on the list is Polly Christensen. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address.
Hello, Mayor Peck, council members, and beloved former colleagues. I came to talk about item 12B, which, what?
Start the time.
Oh, okay, okay. By the way, 410 Judson Street. I came to talk about item 12B, which is under general business, and it's the campaign, the amendments to the Longmont Fair Campaign Practice Act. So what I looked for in the printout to the description of the amendment was the word transparency, and I didn't really see it, but the entire point of the Longmont Campaign Act was to make Longmont's elections more fair and less corrupt through transparency. All of these 3 suggestions do that, and I would urge you to pass them. They're simple and they are they're very well thought out suggestions. The first one is simply a clarification of the fact that address is an email address tells people nothing. I could register as Minnie Mouse at gmail.com and it would tell people nothing about who I am. So these are problems that are addressed in these issues, and they've been going on for a number of years. It's not really a recent problem. Those who want their political donors to be secret and preserve privacy are really in the wrong business. These 3 suggestions also bring the City of Longmont into alignment with the state campaign practices rules. And in the case of Fort Collins LLC rules, they've also been tested in court. So I urge you to pass these. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Polly. Strider Binston.
I do. Strider Benston, 951 17th Avenue. I didn't realize Polly was going to bring up the election, Longmont. I was on the election commission in '09, and it's very interesting what we were finding. The people who took office under illegal out-of-state money, then first time they had a session, they abolished the election committee and disappeared, so we never made a final report. So all of that is still going on. Our currently illegally constituted Supreme Court is now making its own laws irrespective of precedent, authority, or constitutionality, abolishing women's rights, trying to abolish the right to vote, and empowering guns over people. And the former guy who calls himself Mr. President called up to threaten a witness for the investigation next week. We'll see what comes out with that. The Supreme Court already passed a judgment empowering rapists and incest people over women or girl children. And what I've mentioned before, one time you have a massacre, you create fear, you sell guns. 2 times you have a massacre, you get more fear, you sell more guns. 3 times you sell more guns, and then you have a Supreme Court that abolishes any right to restrict guns, and you create basically a civil war. That is what almost happened when the mob attacked the Capitol in Washington. Most of them didn't have their rifles with them. Why? Because Washington, D.C. had a policy you cannot carry machine guns in the city, and they were going to confiscate them, so a lot of them didn't bring their guns. They had them stowed right across the river to bring them in once they took over the Capitol. That would have created a civil war, a race war, with possibly by now millions dead. That is the policy of the people who are pushing that line. Let us not fall asleep. And one new law that the Supreme Court is passing, let's cripple the Environmental Protection Association, which was started by Richard Nixon. And now they would call him a communist because we want to save the planet. And they're saying, no, you cannot have any consideration. Give it all to the corporations. Thank you.
Thank you, Strider. And now Brian Johnston.
Hi, I'm Brian Johnston at 926 Kaufman Street, and issues are often brought before the council to which the council has no authority to do anything about, at least as a legislative body. It's kind of due to doctrine of preemption as part of the supremacy clause where state preempts local and federal preempts state. Sometimes you'll issue statements or send a letter in support of something to someone, and this is one such request. I'm asking that City Council stand with the women of our community whose privacy and health rights were just taken, and I'm asked that you send an official letter to the Colorado Bar Association, asking them to address that their current member, Justice Neil Gorsuch, who is a resident of Boulder, Colorado, and licensed by the Colorado Bar, and ask them to address the fact that he lied under oath during his confirmation hearing. Now, I'm asking that you ask them, that you request that they stand up for the ethics that they purport to in their code of conduct. It won't change the decision. But it might get other municipalities on board. It won't, then ultimately it might, at least at some level, hold him accountable for his perjury. Any council member that doesn't want to sign on to it, fine. But I just think it would be supportive of the women in our community, and I think it would be the right thing to do to stand up for the ethics and values that we should be standing up for, and that it's not okay, even if you're a Supreme Court judge, to lie under oath. And so I hope you guys will consider this, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So before we have the consent agenda, the counselors have been here since 5:30. I would like to take a 5-minute break, if you wouldn't mind.
John, do we have any other presentations tonight?
It's consent, so. Well, that's why I was looking at it going, this looks odd for a share because her presentation.
Sorry, Harold, I sent it to her. It turns to her. I think we're ready for the consent agenda. So Don, would you mind reading the consent agenda into the record?
Absolutely, Mayor. Item 9A is Resolution 2022-110, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the Boulder County Hazard Mitigation Plan for 2022 through 2027. 9B is Resolution 2022-111, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the Colorado Department of Transportation for grant funding for high visibility impaired driving enforcement. 9C is Resolution 2022-112, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the amendment of the amended and restated special counsel contract between the city and Kaplan Kirschen Rockwell LLP to expand the scope of work to include environmental and regulatory compliance special counsel services. And item 9D is approved 2 capital improvement program amendments.
Thank you. Do any counselors want to pull items off of the agenda? I don't see Counselor Martin on items. Okay, seeing no one that wants to pull anything off the agenda, can I have a motion to move this agenda? Move the consent agenda. Thank you. And I'll second that. So the consent agenda has been moved by Counselor Waters and seconded by myself. Let's vote. All those in favor, let's vote. Vote yay. Counselor Martin, are you there? There she is. So we just moved.
Yes, having a few technical difficulties. Hang on.
Okay. We can just, we voted for on the consent agenda. If you just want to tell us your verbal vote. She
Yeah.
did. Well, that passes unanimously. Thank you. So we're down to the ordinances on second reading and public hearings on any matter. The first one is 2022-25, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for expenses and liabilities of the city of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022. Do we have a staff report? Okay, great.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm Teresa Malloy, Budget Manager. And since this appropriation is quite large, we thought we'd take just a few minutes and give you some details on it. So the city's charter requires that that annual unspent appropriations lapse at the end of the year for all funds except our public improvement fund. In addition, the city's purchasing code requires that projects are fully appropriated prior to awarding a contract or a bid. So what that means to us operationally is that any appropriation that was included in a prior year's budget that was budgeted for a very specific purpose or a project, but not yet completed in that year, will need to be carried over. So the 2021 capital improvement program included $84.7 million in budgeted funding for a variety of projects. That combined with $212.6 million in carryover from 2020 resulted in a rather large unspent balance remaining from 2021. That needs to be carried over for the specific purposes for which it was budgeted. So this appropriation is, has really two components. One, $184.9 million of carryover funding. Most of this is for CIP projects that are continuing into 2022 and possibly beyond. There are some two very significant projects that I wanted to bring to your attention. So WTR 189, which is the Nelson Flanders Water Treatment Plant expansion. In this carryover appropriation, there is $43.4 million in the water fund and $12.1 million in the water construction fund. And then the second pretty significant project is WTR 183, which is the Price Park tank replacement. And that one is $24.3 million in the water fund and $6.3 million in the water construction fund. So those are the two most significant projects that make up the bulk of the carryover. However, we do have other funds that have pretty significant carryover projects, and they include the electric utility for advanced metering, the sewer fund for wastewater treatment plant master plan improvements, the storm drainage fund for resilient St. Vrain project, the street fund for Boston Avenue Bridge over the St. Vrain River, the open space fund for open space acquisitions, the fleet fund for vehicles that were budgeted in 21, but due to supply issues were not received and therefore could not have been booked as an expense in 21. And then finally, the utility billing CIS fund for the replacement of the ongoing utility billing software system. So the second type of appropriation included in this ordinance this evening is what we typically bring to you outside of this big carryover. So it's the typical things that you see from us pretty much every month, and that is $3.4 million. So things like grants, additional revenues that were received but not budgeted. And so with that, I do have a few staff members behind me this evening in case you have any projects on anything specific.
I don't see anyone with questions on this. I do have one, Teresa, and it's probably, this is a good report. I'm thankful that you did it, but I'm curious, is there a place on the website that we can look at all of the projects and the dollars amount that were asked for in the budgeting process and where they are on that project?
Oh, and where they are on that project.
I guess I'm curious as to if the budget, and I ran this past Becky Doyle, just this thought process, if they asked for, let's say, $2 million for a specific project, and the timeline would be 2 years, 3 years that it would be provided, but it's gone into 4 and 5 years. how do we know where they are in that I'm curious, is where are they in that project? Whether it's street, whether it's, maintenance, building,
I can jump in on that one.
Okay.
So, that was actually part of our conversations during budget reviews. And one of the things that we're looking at is, so we don't have a unified project management approach. So people are managing their projects in different ways. You know, some use Microsoft Project, some are using Smartsheet, depending on the scope of it. And so what we're actually talking about right now, and you may see this in the budget, is how do we really take a more unified approach in project management, specifically project management software that can create dashboards. And in terms of what we're doing, some places do have dashboards, but we need to bring it together as a city. And part of the reason why I want to see the dashboard is so I can look at where are we on this project. Here's what you budgeted it, you were supposed to start it at this point in time.
Right.
Are we on pace with what we're supposed to be? And Becky and I we had those conversations today about what is that going to look like. But you will definitely see that in the budget process, because we need to be able to move from a dashboard for the the project manager to the director to the ACMs to myself, and then how we can share that with you to say, here is the status of the projects and here's what we're doing.
Oh, that would be great, Harold. I understand that this is operations.
Right.
And we really don't have anything, authority over that. But it would be nice to know when asked, well, even just for my own sake, we see this project going on and it's been in process for 5 years. When are we going to see, what's the holdup? Is it going to be finished? Is it? And part of it is the St. Vrain Bikeway. You know, I've had a lot of questions about that, and I don't really know where we are in that process. Is that I do know that a lot of it had to do with RSVP.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's part of what, you all budget, you approve the budget and the expenditure of these funds, and that's kind of why I want to look at this concept and where we're moving, because I think it is important for you all to see it and see where we are on these projects. Just to answer, where we are on the St. Vrain is we're moving into the Boston Avenue Street project. I'm kind of looking back at Becky, so that's going to start is it this year or next year? So we hope to start this year. Jim's there. The other piece of that project is the work that's going to be done by the Army Corps of Engineers on the Isaac Walton piece that's coming into this. And so, those are the pieces that are now coming forward in that. Did I miss anything, Jim?
And the other thing that's going to be important in completing RSVP is the bond election that we're looking at this year.
Okay.
Right.
And being able to complete that. Once the recovery pieces, the RSVP pieces of the St. Vrain Greenway are completed, we have future phases of the Phase 12 and Phase 13, one going east and one going west, and I keep losing track of which one goes which direction. And those are sort of the next up pieces related to the Greenway.
Okay. Thank you for that. That was a question I had.
You're good, Jim.
You're good? I can give you an update.
I think we're good.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So are there any other questions by council? No. Is there any? Thank you, Teresa. Forgot to think. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none, can I have a motion to move ordinance? What?
I move ordinance 2022-25.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by.
Move
Pro Tem
adoption.
Rodriguez.
Or I can't hear.
So we were wondering do you have any, I asked if there was any comments from council or from the public on ordinance 2022-25, and then asked for a motion to move this ordinance. So the ordinance was.
You have a motion?
We did. It was moved by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor, was it Hidalgo Faring. And now we're going to vote on it. So that motion carried unanimously. The second ordinance on second reading is 2022-26, a bill for an ordinance amending section 3.04.885 of the Longmont Municipal Code, adopting an amended and restated City of Longmont General Employees Retirement Plan. Do we have a staff report on this?
No, Mayor, but Jim is here to answer questions.
Okay. Do we have any comments from the public? Would the public like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none. Are there any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, we need, would someone like to move this ordinance?
I'll move ordinance 2022-26.
All right, it's been moved by Councilor Waters, seconded by Councilor Yarbrough. Let's vote. And that passes unanimously. So we didn't have any items moved from the consent agenda, so we'll move on to general business. We need to recess as the Longmont City Council and convene as the Board of Directors of the Longmont General Improvement District Number 1. May I have a motion? All right. All right, it's been moved by Councilor Waters to convene as the Board of Directors of the Longmont General Improvement District Number 1 and seconded by Councilor Yarbrough. Let's vote. And that passes unanimously. So we have a resolution of RLGID 2022-02. It's a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Longmont General Improvement District Number 1 enacting a supplemental budget and making an additional appropriations for the expenses and liabilities of the district for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022. Do we have any presentation on this? Or anyone want to speak to this? Resolution seeing none. Do we have any questions or comments from the council? So I will move our LGID 2022-02. I'll move this resolution. It's been seconded by Councilor Waters. Let's vote. And that passes unanimously. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
So it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez to adjourn as the Board of Directors of the Longmont General Improvement District Number 1 and reconvene as the Longmont City Council. It's been seconded by Councilor Hidalgo Faring. Let's vote. That carries unanimously. The second thing under general business is an amendment to the Longmont Fair Campaign Practices Act. Do we have a presentation on this? There's Dawn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I did not prepare a PowerPoint presentation, but before you tonight is some possible amendments to Longmont Fair Campaign Practices Act. You all directed us to add the word street in section 204-207A. We have provided a red line showing where that wording would be added. That would clarify that in contribution and expenditure reports, street address would absolutely be required, without a doubt. So that is one suggested amendment. The other two were, the direction you all gave us was for my office to bring back any suggestions we had. We had two. One was to add ballot measures in under electioneering and independent expenditure reporting requirements. And you can see those changes in the red line as we proposed. And the other was to just amend slightly how the violations work. Instead of first requiring our office to issue a notice of violation to allow us to have the conversation, give someone the chance to cure it if they don't or can't, then proceed with a notice of violation. So just reversing that, it actually makes the flow better, and the vast majority of complaints that we've seen are fixed within 7 days. So by and large, the largest issue is someone forgot to file a report and they get them in within 7 days. And then lastly, we were approached by some residents suggesting changes around LLC reporting requirements. We did not draft those in the red line for you because that was, we don't have that direction from council necessarily, but while we had the hood open, so to speak, on this part of our municipal code engine, we wanted to toss that question to you and ask if you, while we are making changes in this section of code, is that something council would like to see moving forward? So Tim Hull, Assistant City Attorney, was kind enough to do a little bit of research around the LLCs, how the statute regulates LLCs, and found that we kind of concurred that the wording that Fort Collins has, it accomplishes the same thing as the statute, but it's just a lot easier to read than statute. So that's why we provided that wording in the council communication, so you could see what that might look like. So we're really looking for direction about which of these items you would like us to bring back for changes in the code. So we'd bring back an ordinance for first and second reading.
Okay, do we have any communication on this? Questions, concerns from councilors? Councilor Waters?
Thanks, Mayor Pack. Should I assume, I'm going to assume, based on the earlier conversation, that the reason for adding the address, and I assume somebody could provide sufficient guidance to candidates to make certain a PayPal account is opened in a way or created in a way that they could get to an address? Because I've had the experience of having a very difficult time doing that. But the purpose of that is really accountability and transparency. Is that fair?
I think,
I agree.
So, and I'm down with that, that's fine. But it does raise a question for me. When we get to a paragraph that talks about a small group of residents, I asked Dawn for the names of residents, she had one. I don't know how many there are. It strikes me as ironic that one provision in the interest of accountability that we add, and then another section where a small group of residents unnamed, and we're going to spend time on a potential legislation that we didn't ask for, that an unnamed group of residents came to somebody and got on a council agenda. It's in my 4.5 or so years on the council, I don't recall that ever happening before.
Can I just interrupt for a minute? Dawn did call and ask if I thought it would be a good idea or if I wanted to throw this in on
Then I'll
this
direct my
discussion.
comments to you. I don't recall this ever happening before.
Maybe
And if a
not.
group of, so here's a question for you. If a group of developers rewrote our code or wanted to see the code rewritten on land use or building codes, or a group of gun enthusiasts wanted to rewrite our legislation on, or proposed legislation on gun regulations or deregulation, or Prosper Longmont, who we do have names of, would that just show up on the council agenda without any conversation ahead of time, without direction from the council?
It possibly could if it's a subject that we were going to be discussing anyway. This is just a discussion, whether we wanted on to be part of the codes, we wanted to rewrite the codes or not, is kind of up to us, or we can just throw it out and say, let's bring this back on another agenda.
So this is an invitation to groups to without request, groups to rewrite or propose language or bring in the ordinances of other communities to Longmont for our consideration without any discussion at this level.
That's a good point.
And let me just ask the question, since that's inconsistent with our charter, I wonder how we get here. Because the charter stipulates under ordinances, section 4.8, we're not following it anyway, that the council shall establish a committee on ordinance revision consisting of the city attorney, the municipal judge, and other member appointed by the council. It goes on from there. I mean, this seems to be consistent with the charter, what we're doing right now.
Okay, good point.
So are we gonna take this seriously? And the way this came to us?
So, it's a good point. Can I hear from the other counselors as well as what do you think about, should we take this out? What is it you would like to do? Continue with this discussion or take this out of our discussion tonight? the,
Mayor, I have a question. Are you referring to the LLC or the street
no,
address or
we're-
the whole?
it's not the whole thing, no. What we're referring to is the amendment proposed by residents to regulate contributions by LLCs.
So, I mean, I'm not ready to adopt any language. I approve of the 3 items that were listed on there and
Okay.
redlined.
So my question is, Counselor Hidalgo Faring, is do you want us to just take this out of this discussion tonight? The amendments proposed by the LLCs?
Well, I wanted to hear a discussion first, kind of, and you had spoke to it a little bit.
But the question is, according to Counselor Waters, it is not in the charter, and I did not follow the charter. So with that in mind, do you want us to leave it in or take it out of tonight's discussion?
So, well, let's go ahead and I mean, I would move to take it out
Okay.
of today's discussion, and then let's look per our charter to have
To
a
discuss it
further,
later.
to discuss that later. But then does that mean that we remove all 3 items?
No,
No,
my
it
concern,
does not. It
I'm not
does
even
not.
speaking to the
Okay.
substance at this point.
No.
I might, because I
yeah.
don't understand some of it, but my concern with just the
It's fine.
process.
It's
Okay.
fine. I took your remarks seriously. Thank you. Counselor Yarbrough.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. If this is not what we're used to, if this is not consistent with, adding in a subject matter to discuss, I think that we probably should bring it back to
Okay.
discuss it.
Thank you.
That's my opinion. But of course, if this is the first time that this is unusual for council, then I think we should.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I do, staff brought it to me, so I think both of us kind of jumped and decided we needed to discuss this. So it wasn't just it was brought to me by staff. Do you have any thoughts on this? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I think, things that are on top of mind for a lot of folks in the way our governance works right now is not upending precedent. And so setting a new precedent tonight, that could open up a slippery slope, as Councilmember Waters named some examples of how this could come back and bite us. I think we should follow our standard rules and procedures and how we introduce items to the agenda.
And Tim, I guess you have no no reason for to be here because of that LLC. I mean,
I did draft the other parts, so I can.
well, I love the way you drafted it, by the way. So, okay, thank you. We will remove that third part, and then we will be taking discussion on the first 3 items that we brought up.
Thank you, Mayor.
So do we have any, Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I have no problem with the addition of street address to it. Is it a consideration that candidates will have to take into account in the coming elections? Yes, but I think it does help provide that transparency that we heard spoken about by a member of the public, as well as, not so much in maybe the most recent elections, but there has been occasions in the fairly recent past where there was a lot of out-of-state money that was coming into city elections, specifically during the oil and gas kind of issues that came up during the fracking ban. So I don't have a problem with that red line change, nor do I think that the suggestions from the city clerk's office, I think they stand up to scrutiny. So I would move that we approve all of those changes as written in the red line version.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments? Okay, do I have a motion then to accept those? You moved it. Second? I'll second. It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem to accept the 3 options that were laid out to us by council to amend the Fair Campaign Practice Act, and it has been seconded by Councilor Hidalgo Faring. Let's vote.
If you don't mind voting.
I'm sorry. Councilor Waters.
Just to be clear, we're considering this then a first reading tonight? Is
No,
that-
we would
that's
bring
the-
it back for first reading.
Okay, so this is the direction to bring it back as first
Correct.
reading. Thank you.
Correct. Are you good with that? Okay,
If you
great.
could vote by hand, since I'm here and not there, please,
Oh.
thank you.
I thought you were magic. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? So that passes unanimously with Counselor Martin.
And Councilor Martin was in favor, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Counselor Martin, I'm sorry, I should have spoke closer to the microphone. Did you hear all of that discussion?
I heard very little of the discussion. As the meeting has gone on, everybody's been getting farther away from their mics.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Well,
Just
maybe I can call you
get
tomorrow and
right
let you
up
know what
there
happened.
if you can. Thank you.
Okay.
Very good, Mayor and Council. So we will put those into ordinance format, get them on the next agenda for first reading.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So now we have final call, public be invited to be heard.
Paul Tiger, where am I? 350 Kimbark? Anywhere that isn't my house. I actually wanted to thank you for adding street to address. I'd like to say that this is really kind of to Tim. There are 10 people on this committee. There are 2 former council members, a city manager. You've received emails from people. You've talked to them. This piece of the wording here for LLC limitation comes from state law. It isn't something that was invented by a developer or someone in their basement. It is follows state law. The wording for Fort Collins was easier to understand. No, you didn't bring it forward, but I was thankful that it was proposed. I hope that at some point in the future, people here on the council will take a look at this code. It's very simple to understand. We've had many problems in the 10 years that I've been involved with it, with LLCs and 501c4s, which is, state PACs. Funding, opposition. I think that in a few years, we'll probably look to that larger code because we are a large city now, and we have a lot of interesting problems like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Mayor and council comments. Do we have any comments from councilors? Councilor Waters.
Once upon a time, in the last year, we gave direction to staff that any residential project that where a developer had applied or was in the entitlement process, that was in the queue for up to a year, that would come to the council for review. We haven't reviewed any in that timeframe that have been in the queue for a year. I'm just curious, are there none that have been in the queue for a year or more that would have been subject to that direction?
Mayor Peck, Councilmember Waters. Currently, Glenn is pulling the data, and I believe is going to send an info item to council with that update. And there may be one that has been back and forth in the queue a few times, so we're hoping to get that to you by the end of this month.
That'd be helpful. It's weird, we had that conversation and we've never come back to it. And just for the interest of accountability, just to make certain we're closing that loop. Kind of a related question. I read a paragraph from the charter tonight. I don't even know if it's right. We're not doing it, all right? We haven't appointed and I'm not being critical of that. We just haven't done it.
I'm sorry, what?
Well,
exactly?
the appointment of an ordinance revision committee.
Oh. Okay.
that includes the city attorney, the municipal judge, which would be a curiosity, and then one other person. It's like just as we haven't had things like we haven't followed that one in the whole 4 years I've been on the council either. And it just begs the question, have we ever, the charter was adopted in 1961. It's been amended a dozen times since then. Has there ever been a citizen review of the charter? Any of those amendments are a result of a citizen review, or they're the kind of one-off things that one of us or when things become a problem and.
So I'm going to interrupt just for a minute because this is a conversation that we had early on, is that we need to look at this charter. So I'm on board with it.
I think it'd be good if we had a citizen review. That's the comment.
Or at least, I'm sorry, at least a citizen on the review committee, citizens, not totally.
Yeah, I think when we looked at some of the charter amendments, we were more focused on. But let me do this. When we looked at the charter on the adjustments regarding the election, obviously we have a lot of things that even we see in there that, we kind of scratch our head. And similar to your point, I've been here when I got here 10 years ago, I don't think there was a ordinance revision committee. I don't know if we've ever had one. And so it probably would be good to look at some of these issues, especially as, we see issues that are in our charter that aren't necessarily in conformance with state law and other things. And so we've tossed that around. I know we were really pushing aggressively in terms of the election component simply because we saw what that did and we didn't want that to occur. But so I don't think any of us are aware of one.
Councillor Martin, I see your hand up. Councillor Martin.
I am the person who introduced the motion that I think was the subject of Dr. Waters' first question, which is, since that motion was adopted, have there been any development projects that included housing that have elapsed longer than 1 year from application to approval that are still awaiting approval? Dr. Waters, I can't hear a word you say. So would you please nod if that was your the gist of your question?
So Councillor Martin, can I just jump in here?
I can't understand you either at this point, Mayor Peck.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. Go ahead, Councillor Martin. Get in that microphone and tell her what she wants to know. Councillor Waters.
Can you hear me now?
Sort of.
I raised that question. I'm swallowing this microphone now. And Marcia, no one here wants to hear what I had to say, I don't think. So just get in line for that.
I don't know the answer. Yes or no? Was that the subject of your first question?
Yes.
And are there any? Because
We're going to get a report.
Anything. What?
You're going to get a report.
When?
It's in the process now. Glenn Van Nimwegen is putting it together now. Assistant City Manager Joni Marsh said that she thinks there is one that will be brought to us.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know because I couldn't hear it.
I think they could have heard me at the Dickens.
Pardon me?
Mayor and Council, Eugene May, City Attorney. I've been here since 2009. There has been no ordinance committee. We have done recodification, which, it's a charter adopted in 61. I'm not sure what the difference is between the recodification and the ordinance review committee.
And we actually have recodification going on right now. And so I do think a lot of those provisions age. I think in terms of recodification, I've been in conversation with the city clerk's office. You know, we hire a service, MuniCode, to update our code, and it's online and is almost current on newly passed ordinances. And so, you know, is that charter provision antiquated or outdated? Perhaps. And the ordinance review committee doesn't have that 10-year, you know, kind of hard timing. It's periodically, and so we are in between periods, apparently.
Thank you. I don't know what we do with that, except for maybe get a committee together and review. But we can discuss that and perhaps think about it, make a motion at the next meeting to direct staff on the way we want to go.
I have actually seen this done in the community that I worked in prior to this, and there's different ways to approach it. So if you all want to do that, then we can, as staff, look into it and give you some options.
That would be great. Thank you, Harold. So back to you, city manager. Do you have any remarks?
No comments, Mayor, Council.
City Attorney Eugene?
No comments, Mayor.
Great. Can I have a motion to adjourn? So it's been moved by Councilor Waters, seconded by Councilor Hidalgo Faring to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. All right. We are adjourned.